many of you here have actually started composting and were disappointed in it, or never had started a composting? Okay, I guess everyone has, right. So you all have questions about how do I go about composting? Well, I'll tell you, there are two different kinds of ways that you can compost. And one is called cold composting, and the other is called hot composting. Now, someone mentioned that they had a composter. You have? You have. Those will make hot, what they call hot composting. You get compost in a matter of probably 3 or 4 months if you follow the directions and do it the right way. You have to put in a lot of green matter versus not so much brown matter, and I'll go into that after anyway. But and you have to keep turning it. Either it has a wheel on it that you can turn with your hand or the handle, or some people have a barrel that they roll. I don't go along with those. I do cold composting, and I'll tell you why. Because with cold composting, you get worms. And worms are great for your garden. Worms work the soil, they deposit worm droppings, which adds fertilizer to your soil. They actually eat your compost. So it goes in one end and out the other. And what you have is fertilizer from them. In hot composting, you can't have worms because the heat gets up to like 130 degrees and it'll kill your worms. Now, there is a disadvantage to cold composting. I say compressing, but composting too. And that is, it won't kill all of your weed seeds. Okay? And if you have to be very careful about not putting diseased plants in your compost pile, because with cold compressing, it won't kill the disease spores. We just started, so you haven't missed much. Sorry. That's all right. My name is Elaina Whitfield, by the way, and I'm a master gardener, and I'm going to talk to you today about composting. So you have to, when you have green garden waste, that is weeds without the seeds, plant remains, like when you clean up your gardens in the, after the season is over, like tomato plants or broccoli stalks or anything like that, or cabbage leaves or lettuce, old lettuce, anything like that can go into your compost pile. Okay. Avoid adding anything with seeds and diseased plant material. Kitchen waste. Now, what I do at home is you don't have to have a very fashionable, I know all the garden magazines now sell these beautiful compost containers that you can put on your kitchen counter. I have a Cool Whip container that I use, and we empty it every day. But vegetable peelings, carrot peelings, cucumber peelings, anything like that, old lettuce, when you clean your lettuce. Coffee grounds, great. Coffee grounds are absolutely wonderful for your compost pile. Tea leaves, you can even throw the tea bags in. Fruit peels, you know, when you're peeling an orange or when you're peeling an apple or a banana. Banana peels are great because it adds potassium to your compost pile. Eggshells, great, okay? Grass clippings are wonderful when you mow the lawn. Just be careful, though, that you don't use grass clippings that you have put chemicals on your lawn, like for the grubs or whatever, or any kind of lawn fertilizer. You know, it should be pure grass clippings. Now your brown, yes?
You mentioned something briefly about seeded vegetables. So So, like
No.
a cucumber has lots of seeds,
No,
peel's
no,
fine? What about apple cores?
Oh, apple cores are fine. Anything like that is fine.
Okay.
When I said seeds, I meant like if you're picking up weeds from the
Oh, okay,
lawn or the
okay.
garden, if it's gone to seed, you don't want to put those
Right,
seeds in
right.
because
I
you're
thought you
going
meant
to get weeds.
produce seeds.
Yeah, you're going to get weeds in your compost pile. You will get some, especially on a cold composting pile, you will get some weeds. You know, you just can't avoid it, okay? Because the pile doesn't get hot enough to kill those weed seeds. So you just, you know, to get the good stuff, you don't mind weeding a little bit. Your brown matter, leaves. Leaves are great. When you, in the fall, when you are raking or you're mowing, if you have a lawnmower that has a bag that shreds the leaves, great, put it on your compost pile. Your compost pile needs to have 2/3 green material to 1/3 brown material, which is carbon. Okay, you need the green, which is the moist nitrogen, versus the carbon, which is the brown stuff. Shredded paper. If anyone has a shredder, this is great. My husband is in the office and he has a shredder. You only want to use newspaper that is not glossy. Okay, no glossy paper. Union Leader is good because they do not use chemicals in their ink. So you can use the non-glossy papers of the Union Leader. Or if you're shredding up bills or anything like that, you know, which is what this is.
So the ink won't have any effect on it?
No, not usually, because it's mostly, unless you see something that has raised writing on your letterheads or whatever, I wouldn't use that, but just regular receipts that you get, you know, that's fine, okay?
That's true, that was a cool paint.
I mean, this is wood, right? So you're putting it back to nature. Okay. Never add protein in the form of meat, chicken, fish, or cheese. You don't ever want to put anything like that in your compost pile.
Bones included?
Mm-hmm. No bones. No bones. Definitely no bones, because you certainly don't want to attract animals. Okay? And you don't want to create an odor from your compost pile.
How about bakery products like stale bread and stuff like
Yes,
that?
that's good. Yes, you can use that. Diseased plants or pest-infested plants, you don't want to put in your compost pile. Manure from pigs, dogs, and cats, you do not want to put into your compost pile. Manure from cows, horses, that's good, okay? That has to be aged anyway, so a little bit of it in your compost pile would be fine. I don't know why they say pig's manure is not good. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's just too rich or whatever pigs eat.
What about rabbits? I've heard that.
Yeah, rabbits would be good.
The more to go onto the rabbit turds for some reason, and people say that.
No, the little rabbit that they make little
yeah.
pellets. Yeah, that's good.
But they put worms, for some reason, if you really ever want to find worms, look underneath the rabbit cage and there's tons of worms.
Okay, well, that's a good sign.
Yeah,
Wherever you find worms, that's good because they're digesting all of that.
Should we add worms to our pile?
You don't have to, because if your pile is good, the worms will find it. Believe you me. Okay, weeds with a high seed content, you don't want to put in your compost pile. And roots of invasive weeds, okay, do not put those in your compost pile because you'll never get rid of them. Case in point, if anybody has Lily of the Valley, do not put that in your compost pile because you will never get rid of it. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is how do you go about making a compost pile? Well, you really don't need an expensive gadget to make compost. In my home, I have fortunately, I have an 1.5 acre land and there's woods in the back of my house. You want to situate your compost pile, if you're not going to use any kind of a container, in a semi-shaded area, okay, where it can get some rain. I have 4 piles going all the time. And because I do the cold composting, I have to wait at least a year for my compost to be finished. Now, this is what finished compost looks like. You can pass it along. You can open the
back
bag.
up a little bit? What is the difference between cold compost and...
Okay, cold composting, I'm going to get to that.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Yeah. That is finished compost. That was from a pile that's probably about 2 years old. That's why I like to keep 4 piles going, but I have the room to do that. Some of you might not have the room to do that. If you do, you're lucky, okay? Yes.
Now, is that compost you have right there, has that been screened or anything?
Yes, that, I screen that.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, all right.
What my husband has made me a rack with hardware pull-up with about 1/2 inch openings, and I put that right on my wheelbarrow, shovel the compost
Right,
in,
okay.
screen it with a hole, and this is what I come up with.
Because mine was kind of coarse, and I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe they screen it, no?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Could
you
you
can,
use wire screen, you know, with 1/2 inch holes or anything?
yeah, as long as
As
you,
long as you've got some Home Depot.
yeah, as long as you can, if you're satisfied with what the results are. Your holes are small enough to keep the bigger particles out.
Okay.
Because you're thinking about, you might want to use that seed starting. So you're thinking, you know, you don't want any big particles in there that are going to inhibit the seeds from germinating.
Wonder why?
Smells good, doesn't it?
Smells like dress.
That's why I've never known.
Dread's good.
Okay. All right, now get to your question here about hot and cold. I mentioned that before. The word hadn't come in yet, so.
I apologize.
I will, no problem. Hot composting is done usually in a container, which I was mentioning, the one that you turn, that you can get compost like in 4 months. Okay, but that's because you're using manure, fertilizer manure. So it's going to create heat in that container. You turn it all the time, probably every day. They recommend you turn it so that it's mixing all the time. So the inside temperature of a hot compost pile should get to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. That'll kill everything, okay? Eat worms, all your little microbes in there, but you'll have good sterile compost, okay? This is the
So it's a
best.
barrel you spin?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can buy those, you know, you go onto any website of a gardening magazine or even,
It's like cement mixer?
No.
Size or bigger or smaller?
oh, yeah, they're all
They're all
sizes,
sizes.
yeah, they're all sizes. I mean, you can get very elaborate and get a huge one, but
You can
I'm
try it.
satisfied with the piles. And I make my piles about 4 feet high and probably 4 feet wide. And another way you can control that is I take fencing, make a circle with the fencing, and then just start throwing the stuff inside the fence. When you start out with a compost pile, you should always put like some branches or sticks or something on the bottom so that you can let some air get in underneath there, okay? One other thing that you could do is get a pallet. Pallets are easy to come by. Just go into any trucking business and they're willing to give those pallets away. You can even make a composter with, in fact, if you look at this paper, I think there is a form in here where it shows you how to make a composter. Yeah, with pallets or wooden fencing. Yeah, you didn't get one. Or just the fencing itself. And when you have a compost pile that's probably about maybe this high, okay, and you're still throwing stuff on top of it, make a little indentation in the top so that it will hold the rainwater. You don't want your compost to get soggy. That's not what you want, but you want it to be moist. Okay, if you check that dirt out or that compost out, if you squeeze it, it will hold together. That's what you want in your compost pile. Nothing that's going to be soggy. Also, once I screen my compost, I add perlite to it in the wheelbarrow. I'll add like maybe a third of the amount of compost of perlite. Mix it all up. And this is what I end up with.
No, that's the hot or the cold.
This is the cold.
Yes.
I only,
Down, back and forth.
yeah, I only compost with cold composting. But this is what I end up with right here. And you don't have to buy any potting soil because that's great. It's got everything you need in it.
What's the ratio?
When I put it, when I have a wheelbarrow full, I'll put about a third of the amount of perlite, this right here, into the wheelbarrow and mix it all up with a hoe. Okay?
Do you have to scrape the mulch to get a fine like that?
Screen it, yes.
You should.
Yes. Well, it depends on what you want to use it for. If you want to just shovel it in your garden, you don't have to screen it.
Right.
But if you're using it to, like for planters, window boxes, seed starting, then you should screen it. Okay?
Because it's still disintegrating anyway, and if you just throw it in the water.
Yeah, yeah.
So I see several different pictures here on how to do it. And we started this little compost pile last fall when my wife found a composting
Gadget.
barrel.
Yeah.
And somebody was chucking it out, and she went, "I'll have that," and took it, and we've been putting stuff in it ever since.
Disastrous.
Is this good or bad, or?
Well, you don't know, just by putting stuff in it, you have to have some kind of a formula. Like I said, you should have like 2/3 of green matter
Right.
to 1/3 of dry matter, which is your brown matter. And in a composter, you should add a little bit of soil, just to keep things, just to start things going.
We had pine shavings to it. I have a self-composting toilet that we add, that's all we add to it is pine shavings. So we've been kind of throwing them in our little thing too.
Yeah, I would not use anything that was a self-composting toilet.
No. It's two separate units, but what I'm saying
It's using
is,
the sawdust itself,
Oh, okay,
not,
all right.
not the others.
Yeah, sawdust is okay.
And that's what it is.
Sawdust is all right, yeah.
well, they tell me that when it all comes out the bottom, that it's like ready to be spread. Glad it's gonna take 7 years, I probably won't be around then.
That I can't answer because I don't have anything that I know of about toilet.
I will say this, it has no odor,
Yeah,
none.
you're right. I have heard that, yes.
Yeah,
It doesn't have-
it's surprising.
It sort of burns itself up.
Yeah, just to qualify it a little, I'm a ranger at Boy Scout camp.
Okay.
It's at a
yeah,
Boy Scout camp.
Yeah, good, okay.
Okay, so I've ended up with a lot of mold.
Oh,
And
yeah.
debris going all over the place. The pumpkin, I didn't crush it up when I threw it in there.
Yeah, too much moisture. You got too much moisture.
And it's black and covered.
No, but what you're throwing in there is too much. It's causing the moisture. If you've got mold, it's causing the moisture. Why don't you try cold compressing and forget about the composter. Just try it with a pile, like one of these 3 methods here, and see how that works.
So it sounds like you don't really recommend this thing. That's a no.
I just
Just say it.
I would rather do it with cold composting myself. I've always done it for years and I've had good luck with it. So
Yeah, that's what she had, we used to live in Massachusetts many years ago in a different life. And that's what she had in her backyard, it was just open with
Yeah,
wire, so.
yeah. You don't have to have a large one, you can start small. But you have to, turn it every once in a while just to kind of mix up the ingredients, let some air in. And that's really important is to let some air in.
And this black thing has all sorts of vent holes all around it.
Yeah, but
There's no
if your
door
matter
at the
gets packed
bottom.
down, if your matter gets compacted, packed
Yeah.
down, the air doesn't get in.
Right.
So you have to loosen it up, let the air get in, because the air is what helps the breakdown, the decomposition.
I think we have too much kitchen.
Anyway, whatever that word is. Decomposition, right, thank you, Ron. Okay, are there any other questions besides that? I haven't had a chance to read through this, but if anybody has a question on this, I'm glad to answer it. And like I said, worms are your friend, so don't kill a worm.
You add clamshells, which is calcium, in that pile?
You could, but you should crush them first.
Break them up?
Yeah, because it's going to take a long time for them to
Or
decompose.
just put them in the garden, spread them around the garden?
Yeah, you could do it that
Yeah.
way, yeah.
Would that go for any type of shellfish?
I wouldn't put fish in, no.
Shellfish, the shell?
No, clam shells are mostly calcium, so that's what he's talking about. But I wouldn't put anything else in.
Well, my father used to bury the lobster shells and everything in
Yeah.
the garden, and it always grew like
Yeah.
crazy, so I was just wondering.
One thing you have to make sure that you don't put anything in that's going to attract animals. And like I said, I have 4 piles, and they don't, you don't smell them, you don't see them. I've never had any animals get into them. So I consider it, man, I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Could you talk about the ratio of how much for gardening, for vegetable gardening, how much do you add to your plot? How much compost do you add?
Just shovel it in.
Just put-
The more the better. Whatever you can afford to put in there,
So now do you rototill and mix
You
it
can.
down? Okay,
You
just-
can. All you have to do is just, like a lot of times, if you're planting your vegetables by rows, and you make a furrow to plant your seeds, put your compost in there. Put your seeds in. Cover them over. Okay? Then you don't have to spread it out. You can put your compost in certain areas. Even during the summer, side dress your plants, your tomato plants, pepper plants
So
with
you have to put it on
compost.
top?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the rain will wash all the nutrients down into the soil.
Do you use lime also?
No, we don't lime because we have a wood stove and we use our wood ashes in the garden. Yeah, which is a little bit better than lime because they're faster acting wood ashes. Like lime is very, very slow act. It takes a long time. It can take up to a year for lime to be, good in the garden.
Can I add ash to the pile?
Yes, you can. Yeah, just don't overdo it because you don't want to upset the pH balance of it. So a little bit goes a long way in your compost pile. But
So we talking like a 10th ratio, something like that?
well, if you have a pile that's 4 feet high and 4 feet wide, probably about maybe a half a bucket full.
Okay.
Not all at the same time, in layers. When you put some green matter in and brown matter, put some lime in, wood ash in.
Now, what is the perlite that you talked about? What is that perlite?
Okay. Perlite is, I know vermiculite is a volcanic thing. I don't like vermiculite. Perlite is, what's perlite?
Just to let the oxygen in, maybe?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, but I'm wondering how do they mine perlite?
You should go to a library and find out.
You're right.
Google it.
It's not really stone, but it's similar to that. But I like this, I like perlite better because vermiculite breaks down too quickly. And then it makes everything kind of soggy like. This here, as you can see by the finished product, it keeps it all fluffy.
Looks like a bag of Oreo cookies all smashed up.
Yeah, it keeps it all fluffy.
No salad.
Yes,
Okay.
I've seen it like in Miracle Grow or.
Right, if you buy potting soil, you'll find it in your potting soil. Yeah. So you can make your own potting soil and save yourself some money. Okay.
Have you used fertilizer on top of, or this is your?
I do use some fertilizer, not very much, but because I'm an organic gardener, so I use a spoma, like plant tone, polytone, rose tone. Those are all put out by a spoma, and they're all organic fertilizers.
Is it the spoma?
Yeah. ESPOMA, like plant tone. Yeah, plant tone. Anything tone after that is organic.
No sides.
No what?
No sides. No pesticides. No sides. No sides.
No. No. Are there any other questions? Yes.
You say you have 4 bins. Why do you have 4 bins? Do you take it and move one from one bin to
No,
another?
what I do is I have 4 piles, okay? And 2 of them I have in a fencing. And 2 of them I have further out in the woods that are just piles. And they're probably about that high and maybe about that big around. Like, I have 4 piles because the first pile that I made is 4 years old. So that is really ready. And that's where I got this from, my 4-year-old pile. And so then I'll move on. Once that pile is done, I'll start another one in that same spot. And I'll move on to the next pile, which is 3 years old. And then just keep on going like that. So, yes, Ron?
Vermiculite is a spongy material made from mica,
Okay.
whereas perlite is a type of highly porous volcanic glass that resembles pumice.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. I'll have to remember that.
Technology is.
All right, so I have a question for you. This is
Yeah.
going to be on a larger scale. Some of the gentlemen that run the Boy Scout camp in the summertime would like to start to compost some of their stuff. What kind of scale are we talking about here? All right, we're talking about, you know, food waste for 3 meals for 400 people a day.
Those are going to be a lot of compost piles.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you better off with lots of little or you know, few big?
Well, big piles take longer to decompose. You have to turn them more often.
Oh, wait, that would be me.
Just to let the air get into them, and they're going to compact for you more than regular 4-foot ones. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you have an overabundance of...
Well, I think this is what's happened with our
Yeah.
experiment here is I think most of what's going in there is kitchen waste.
Yeah, which
And
is...
I have a feeling that, you know, again, best laid plans of mice and men, or Boy Scouts and wannabes, it's just going to be a garbage heap.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
see,
not gonna work.
what's happening is that the dump is going to have wonderful compost. Because it's all going to the dump, right?
Yes, it's going into the dumpster, and then from there it goes out.
Yeah, and you know, you can actually go, like all these small towns around, you can actually go to the dump and pick up leaf mold and compost that they have started. You know, for people who don't have, like, live in apartments and things
Right.
like that. So, if you can save what you can and make your own compost piles at this Boy Scout camp, that would be great.
Yeah, see, you know, I just, this is one of the reasons I wanted to come and
Yeah.
listen to you this evening was, you know, it's a great idea, you know, but, you know, does it fall to me to take care of all this stuff
Well,
that's
that's,
generated?
I can't answer that question.
Well,
I don't think anybody's gonna be assigned to it.
well, you know, like I said, there's a lot of people that with great ideas, but not too many people follow through with it.
Oh, I know that.
You know, so,
But you know, it's a good idea to have 4 different piles like you have.
Yeah.
Because like me, I just keep adding to the pile and they'll never get done. You know?
Right. You have to let it rest at some point,
Right.
too.
mine's gonna be done when all the rodents come inside to eat it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what it sounded like to
Well,
me.
you don't want that.
I know.
Yeah. See, on your compost piles, you're always going to have a section on the top that is never going to be decomposed. So you always, you turn it
Right.
over, okay, and you work from the bottom. You pick up all the stuff at the bottom. Yeah.
Now, what do you do in the wintertime?
The wintertime is fine. We keep adding to the compost pile in the wintertime. It doesn't decompose, it'll sit there,
Right.
you know, but when the weather starts to turn warm, it works again. It keeps working.
Do you like brush the snow off and get the?
No, because that's moisture. That's water going into the pile to get it activated. Yeah. And if you have your compost pile in an area where you feel it is getting too much rain, you can cover it with a tarp. Just cover the top of it with a tarp, so the rain will go all over it, and not sink down into it.
Now, what about bugs? Now, my compost, I have these little tiny bugs
Yeah, those
that kind
are,
of like hover around.
yeah, those are actually good because they're helping to break down all of that
They're
stuff.
like little black flies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Those are
yeah,
fine.
those are okay,
Okay.
yeah. So I wouldn't worry about them unless they're getting in your house.
No.
Any other questions? Okay, now you're all going to have wonderful compost piles, aren't you?
Or the health department, one of the two.
Well, you're welcome to come up and look at some of these books. This book right here is my book, and it's on organic farming, organic gardening. It's a wonderful book. It goes in, it has a whole big chapter on composting, and goes from, you know, treating your soil to the end on all the vegetables you can grow and how to take care of them and how to harvest them and everything. So it's a complete.
You mean you wrote it?
No.
Oh.
This. No, it's Organic Gardening for the 21st Century by John Fedor. Here, I'll let you take a look at it.
Maybe you'll get more than one tomato.
Isn't it cool? Yeah. Yeah. It's a very good book. And you're welcome to come up and look at all of these books that Matt has on the table here.